You're walking through a construction site in rural China. The ground beneath your boots is dry, the air thick with dust, and the sound of pickaxes hitting rock echoes around you. Then someone hits something solid. Not stone, not metal. Something strange, something sealed. At first it looks like just another old tomb. China is full of them. But this one is different. Inside lies a woman who died more than 2,000 years ago. And yet, her skin is still soft. Her joints still bend. Blood still flows in her veins. What the workers found that day in 1971 wasn't just a historical relic. It was a perfectly preserved body from the Han Dynasty. A discovery so shocking that even modern scientists struggled to explain it. Her name was Lady Xinjui, and what she left behind would change everything we thought we knew about life, death, and ancient China. Lady Xinjui, also known as the Marquise of Dai, lived during one of the most refined and prosperous times in ancient China, the Western Han Dynasty, over 2,000 years ago. She was the wife of Li Kang, the Marquise of Dai, a nobleman and high-ranking official. Together, they lived in the region now known as Hunan Province. Their world was one of music, fine silk, perfumed gardens, and banquet tables heavy with rich food. A life of comfort, but also, as we would later find out, a life that took a toll on her body. She died around 168 BCE, probably in her early 50s. Not young, but not old either. And when her body was finally uncovered nearly 2 millennia later, it told a story far more detailed than anyone could have imagined. The discovery was accidental. In the summer of 1971, construction workers were digging an air raid shelter beneath a hospital in the city of Changsha. As they dug, they struck something hard, then something hollow. Archaeologists were called in, and soon it became clear. They had found a tomb complex that had remained sealed and untouched since the Han Dynasty. And what they uncovered inside was, quite literally, unbelievable. Her tomb was buried nearly 40 feet underground, built with the kind of precision that can only come from serious intent. It was layered with white clay and charcoal, materials chosen carefully to keep out moisture and bacteria. Inside were 4 coffins, nested one inside another, like Russian dolls. The innermost coffin was sealed airtight and filled with a mysterious reddish liquid. No one is entirely sure what it was even now. Some believe it contained ingredients that slowed decay. Others think it was simply groundwater that seeped in and mixed with burial materials. But one thing is certain, it worked. When the coffin was opened and the body of Lady Xinjui was revealed, scientists were stunned. Her skin was still soft, her arms and legs still bent at the joints, her hair remained, her veins still carried traces of blood, even her eyelashes were intact. She looked, in many ways, like she had died yesterday. This wasn't mummification in the Egyptian sense. No removal of organs, no wrapping in linen. It wasn't freezing, and it wasn't chemical embalming. This was something else entirely, a preservation so complete that doctors were able to perform a full autopsy, something almost unheard of for someone dead for over 2,000 years. They discovered that her cause of death was a heart attack, likely brought on by obesity, a sedentary lifestyle, and an overly rich diet. In fact, her stomach still contained her last meal, melons, still identifiable, still intact. But the story doesn't end with the body. The tomb itself was a time capsule of extraordinary detail. Over 1,000 items were found, each one offering a snapshot of daily life among the elite in Han Dynasty China. There were silk garments, delicate, colorful, finely woven, some still soft enough to wear. These weren't simple robes either. They were beautifully tailored, with embroidery that told stories and patterns that revealed social status. There were carved wooden figurines, 162 of them, representing servants and workers placed there to serve Lady Xinjui in the afterlife. There was lacquerware, elaborately decorated and still gleaming after centuries. Musical instruments, including a beautifully preserved sea made of wood and silk strings, hinting at her refined tastes. There were even boxes of makeup and combs, a reminder that vanity and grooming were as important then as now. And then came something unexpected. Menus, 138 of them. Written on bamboo slips, they listed the food Lady Xinjui liked to eat. Dishes with duck, pork, beef, lamb, fish. Elaborate recipes that included not just ingredients but cooking instructions. There were even instructions for making different types of wine. Actual food was found too. bowls of preserved eggs, meats, nuts, and fruits. Some still held their color. Some still carried their scent. They weren't just left as decoration, they were real offerings, packed with care and love, intended to nourish her on the other side. But there was more than just luxury in that tomb. There was also knowledge. Among the objects was a library of silk scrolls, texts on medicine, health, and healing. Some described symptoms of disease. Others listed herbal treatments, over 240 remedies in total. Many of these same herbs are still used in traditional Chinese medicine today. These scrolls, written in calligraphy that was still legible after 2 millennia, showed that Lady Xin Zhui lived in a time when science, art, and philosophy were deeply intertwined. The contents of the tomb gave historians a rare chance to see how the ancient Chinese thought about death. The layers of coffins, the airtight seal, the offerings of food and clothes, the musical instruments, the figurines. It all pointed to a belief that life continued after death, and that the deceased needed their body and their belongings intact to make the journey. This wasn't about fear of the unknown. It was about preparation, a kind of cosmic hospitality, a determination to enter the next life with the same dignity and comfort she had enjoyed in this one. And yet, even with all we know, some things remain a mystery. The liquid that preserved her body has never been fully identified. Tests have shown traces of mercury, a substance that the ancient Chinese believed could prolong life and even grant immortality. Mercury was used in burial chambers, mixed into ceiling materials, and sometimes even consumed in small doses. It's possible that its presence in her coffin played a role in slowing the breakdown of tissue, but no one knows for sure. How did they know to do this? Was it trial and error, ritual, intuition passed down over generations? Modern scientists have tried to replicate the conditions of her preservation. They've studied the temperature, the humidity, the materials used to seal the tomb, but none have been able to fully reproduce the outcome. It's as if the tomb of Lady Xin Zhui isn't just a burial site. It's a puzzle, a reminder that ancient civilizations often knew far more than we give them credit for. This wasn't just about wealth. This was about mastery. A mastery of architecture, of chemistry, of human anatomy, of time. And through all of this, what strikes most is how personal the story feels. Here was a woman with clogged arteries and a taste for rich food. A woman who loved music and silk, who spent her final days in comfort, surrounded by servants and elegance, who was buried not just with ritual, but with care, with tenderness. Even 2,000 years later, you can feel that love in the way her tomb was built, in the soft silk laid over her body, in the food that was packed for her journey. Her story isn't just about how she died, it's about how deeply she was remembered. Today, Lady Xin Zhui lies in the Hunan Provincial Museum, preserved in a specially designed chamber. She is still studied, still teaching us, still holding on to secrets we haven't cracked. Her tomb remains one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, not just for what it contained, but for what it continues to reveal. It's a bridge between two worlds, the ancient and the modern, the living and the dead. A reminder that human beings, no matter when or where they lived, all shared the same hopes, to be remembered, to be respected, to be cared for beyond the grave. And in many ways, Lady Xin Zhui got exactly that. Her story is told in classrooms, museums, and videos like this one. Her face is known. Her life, its luxury, its illness, its end, is part of the shared history of us all. We still don't fully understand how her body stayed so intact, or how ancient engineers managed to create a tomb that could outlast time. Maybe we never will. But what's clear is that this wasn't luck. It was intention, knowledge, and love. What will future generations find of us? What will they say when they open our tombs, read our menus, see how we lived and what we left behind? Maybe that's the real legacy of Lady Xin Zhui, not just what was buried, but what was preserved. A life in full. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories from the edges of history, science, and human discovery. Until next time.